Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today we are going to discuss about the recently passed WMD, that is Weapons of Mass Destruction and Their Delivery Systems, Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Amendment Bill 2022. The bill has recently been passed by the Lok Sabha. So it is in this context we are going to discuss about this particular bill. Also, one other important point is this bill has been passed unanimously in the Lok Sabha. Unanimously means that no member of Lok Sabha has voted against this particular bill. Now question comes, what is the amendment all about? So this amendment in this particular bill that was earlier passed in year 2005 provide against the financing of proliferation of weapons of mass destruction and their delivery system, and this is in line with India's international obligations that India has ratified and signed various treaties, and it is in this context, or it is due to this region that India has to provide against the financing of such activities. The earlier bill, the first bill that was passed and then formulated into the act, that is called as WMD, Prohibition of Unlawful Activities Act, it does not talk about the financing aspect of WMD. It just talks about the manufacturing, prohibition on the manufacturing, prohibition on the transportation and transfers of WMD and their delivery systems. So this was one missing factor that has been added by the amendment of the said bill. Now, what are the rationale or reasons behind the amendment that the government has given to the assembly? So first, it has said that continuously from last few years there has been expansion in the regulations of WMD by various international organizations. Various conventions are there. For example, we have Chemical Weapons Convention, we have Biological Weapons Convention, we have Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaties. So all these regulation international organizations, for example, United Nations and all these, they have expanded their scope of regulation of WMD, and it is due to this context, due to this region, India also has to amend the bill. Second, the United Nations Security Council, they have started targeting the countries and organizations which and put the such organizations countries on the sanctions list who somehow have funded or have made available the finances for development or purchase of WMDs. The third reason also is with respect to the FATF, that is the Financial Action Task Force. This organization also have strongly mandated against financing of any WMD and related systems. So it is in these three contexts that the government of India has amended this bill in the parliament. Now coming to the topic of WMD, that what is the weapons of mass destruction. So generally the first historical use of this term, that is WMD term, has been used by Archbishop of Canterbury during the Spanish Civil War of year 1937. The Spanish Civil War, we have dictator General Franco of Spain, and the Italian fascist government supported General Franco, and in support of him, the Italian government and German government has actually bombarded the whole city or various cities of Spain, and that is when the WMD term was used. Then later on, this term became much popular in the early 2000s when the United States government led by George Bush and the UK government led by the then Prime Minister Tony Blair actually waged a war against Iraq on the pretext of that Iraq has capability of developing WMD, and they already have developed to some extent WMD, and this was the ground on which both countries invaded Iraq. However, later on it was found that there was no such weapons of mass destruction being hidden or being hidden by the Iraqi government anywhere on the Iraqi territory. So basically, if we talk about WMD on international forum, we do not have a single authoritative definition as per any given international law. So how do we define WMD? So one close definition of WMD is given by United States Department of Homeland Security, where it says that weapons of mass destruction can include all such weapons which are nuclear in nature, that is nuclear weapons. It also includes the chemical weapons. Apart from that, it also includes biological weapons, and then it also includes any sort of radiological weapon. Now nuclear weapon, everyone, if you know what is nuclear weapon, it is something that is able to cause nuclear fission fusion reaction and thus generates huge amount of energy that causes high scale damage to the people where the bomb has been dropped. Apart from that, chemical weapons, there are actually a lot of such kind of chemicals can be there which causes problem in the respiratory system, problem in inhalation, and also causes blisters on the skin. So it damages the overall anatomy of the human body. That is the chemical weapons. It can be, for example, chlorine gas or mustard gas, which is generally used, has been generally used before. Biological weapons can any type of modified organisms. It can be fungi, it can be bacteria, it can be viruses that can be weaponized and can cause large scale epidemic or pandemic like situations. And then we have radiological weapon. Again, there is something that can cause high or large scale radiation, high energy radiation that can damage the skin and the even DNA of body. So these are the weapons that is categorized as WMD as per US Department of Homeland Security. Now, what about India? What does and how does India's WMD Act defines weapons of mass destruction? So basically, nuclear weapons definition we already understand. So it says what are the biological weapons. So as per the India's Act, it defines biological weapons as any such microbial or any other biological agents or toxins whose presence or whose preparation or manufacturing cannot be justified for any prophylactic, protective or peaceful purposes. Not only that, even if someone is developing a delivery system for transportation of such agents and toxins, then that can also be characterized as a biological weapon. Similarly, if we talk about chemical weapons, Indian Act defines chemical weapon as such toxic chemicals and their precursors whose use cannot be justified except for the peaceful, protective and certain specified military and law enforcement purposes. Now this is very interesting because India says that we cannot categorize such weapons as chemical weapons if their uses are for peaceful, protective and specified military and law enforcement purposes. So on international scale, what are the mechanisms to control the proliferation or production of chemical and biological weapons? So 3-4 main conventions are there. The first of them, the oldest one, is the Geneva Protocol that was signed in 1925, which banned the use of chemical and biological weapons during the war or peacetime. Then after this Geneva Protocol, as the scientific progress in the area of WMD increased, Biological Weapons Convention was signed in 1972 and the Chemical Weapons Convention, also called as CWC, was signed in year 1992. And these two conventions comprehensively bans any use of biological and chemical weapons respectively. Then as far as the nuclear weapons are concerned, we have two important treaties. One is the NPT, that is Non-Proliferation Treaty. Another is the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, also called as CTBT. So it basically prohibits the use and proliferation of nuclear weapons, and the countries which already have nuclear weapon capabilities, this convention on this treaty try to regulate their uses, regulate their production. Now NPT is a very important treaty, so let's try to understand slightly more about nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So as of now, those countries that is shaded in blue here are the countries which are signatory of nuclear proliferation treaty, and they are nuclear weapon state. That means they have nuclear capabilities. The 5 such states countries are there which are signatory of NPT and as well as have nuclear capabilities. That is Russia, China, France, UK and USA. Apart from that, it is believed that 3 countries like India, Pakistan and Israel also are nuclear weapon states. However, they are not signatory to the nuclear non-proliferation treaty due to various reasons that have been given by them. Apart from that, we have one country, that is North Korea. North Korea earlier up to year 2003 was signatory to NPT. However, it withdrew itself from the treaty in 2003 and tested its first nuclear device in year 2006. Also, if we try to understand, one other country is the South Sudan. If you look at the whole African continent, South Sudan is the only country that is not signatory to the NPT. Otherwise, all the countries are signatory to NPT. And all the countries in Latin America, Australia, Southeast Asia that is shaded in blue are the member or signatory of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and at the same time they do not possess any kind of nuclear weapons capabilities. So what we can see, that total 8 countries are there which have nuclear capabilities, and one country, that is North Korea, that also have tested its nuclear device. The first country to test nuclear device obviously was United States of America, and this is the only country that have used nuclear device or nuclear bomb over any other country. That is in World War II, you know that Nagasaki and Hiroshima region of Japan. Now, if we look at the historical uses of NBC as weapons, so the first recorded use is of nuclear weapons, as we discussed just now, was during the World War II, the last end phase of World War II in 1945, when US dropped 2 atomic bomb, nuclear bomb, one in the Nagasaki region of Japan and other in the Hiroshima region of Japan, which instantly caused the death of 60,000 people due to the radiation and the heat and energy that is emitted out of the bomb. By the end of that particular year, the death toll rose up to 140,000, and even up to today, it is believed that the genetic problem still is prevalent in the population of these two regions, and that is the overall long-term effect of the use of nuclear weapons. Then, apart from that, if we talk about the use of chemical weapons, so it was used, like for example, the most important, or we can say most widely used chemical weapons has been the chlorine gas and mustard gas, and these chemical weapon has been used during World War I also, and during the Iran-Iraq war of 1990s in the later phases. The use of biological weapons is historically we can trace to one point during the event of World War II, when Japanese military spreaded a plague-infected lice in the large areas of China, and that is the only recorded use of biological weapons as of now. So what we can see in conclusion, that since the end of Cold War is the period after we can say since till 1989-1991, when we have this division or disintegration of Soviet Union, and in the Cold War time we have the world has been divided into a bipolar state where we have one side USA and other side we have USSR. So since the end of Cold War, after disintegration of USSR, the main concern regarding all WMD has been proliferation. That is the potential for lesser power, smaller states, rogue states like South Korea or international terrorist groups. There is a risk that these states and terrorist groups can acquire the means to produce and deliver WMD that can be disastrous for the whole humanity. And that is why the whole focus of international law regulations as well as the international bodies is to ensure that proliferation or the passage of such weapons to these groups does not occur. So that is all about the India's WMD Act, why it has been amended, and a brief background about the WMD. That is all. Thank you very much.